Now let's head on to exercises section. In this exercises, we are going to briefly see some MCQs. So let us get on with this exercises. The sectors are classified into public and private sector on the basis of A. Employment conditions, B. The nature of economic activity, C. Ownership of enterprises, D. Number of workers employed in the enterprise. The answer is this division is based on ownership of enterprises, as in who owns the assets that are there in this sector. In the public sector, it's the government. In the private sector, the majority of the assets that are owned are by the private individuals. Based on employment conditions, the division is as per organized or unorganized. Nature of economic activity also. And number of workers employed in the enterprise does not have any kind of divisions. Production of a commodity, mostly through the natural process, is an activity in the dash sector. A. Primary sector, B. Secondary sector, C. Tertiary sector, D. Information technology. The answer has to be A. Primary sector. That is, production of a commodity, mostly through the natural process, is an activity of the primary sector. So, primary sector is also called as the agricultural sector, and this sector exploits the different natural resources such as cotton, such as milk, etc. in order to provide it for the other two sectors. GDP is the total value of dash produced during a particular year. A. All goods and services. B. All final goods and services. C. All intermediate goods and services. D. All intermediate and final goods and services. The answer has to be GDP is the total value of all final goods and services that are produced during a particular year. Intermediate and final goods are not put together in order to uh, avoid double counting of goods and services, right? Let's go back to the wheat example. You will finally count the the value of biscuits, but you will not count the kind of ingredients that were there into putting up that biscuit, because it leads to double counting, and when we use double counting for GDP, it is going to be double the actual number. So we will just use the final goods and services, that is the biscuits. The service sector includes activities such as A. Agriculture, dairy, fishing and forestry. B. Making sugar, gur and bricks. C. Transport, communication and banking. D. None of these. You have C. Transport, communication and banking are those services, are those activities that are under the service sector. Under A, agriculture, dairy, fishing and forestry are a part of primary sector. Making sugar, gur and bricks are a part of manufacturing sector, that is the secondary sector. Which of the following is included in the tertiary sector? A. ATM booths. B. Call centers. C. Internet cafes. D. All of them. The answer is B, all of them. So ATM booths, call centers, internet cafes are all included in the tertiary sector. Government owns most of the assets and provides all the services in which of these sectors? A. Private sector. B. Tertiary sector. C. Organized sector. D. Public sector. The answer is B, public sector. So here it is showing the kind of ownership of assets, and under ownership the only two divisions are private sector and public sector. Under private sector you have that ownership is by the private individuals. In the public sector ownership is by the government, which is the right answer. Tertiary sector is not the correct answer, as well as organized sector is in terms of the nature of employment, right? The kind of work that you do. A situation in which more persons are employed on a job than are optimally required is A. Structural unemployment. B. Disguised unemployment. C. Cyclical unemployment. D. Seasonal unemployment. This is also called as B. Disguised unemployment, and this is highly seen in areas of agriculture in the rural areas. So this is a situation where more people are employed in a job than what is actually required, right? So the other three are eliminated. Central government in India made a law implementing the right to work in how many districts of India? A. 150 districts. B. 200 districts. C. 250 districts. D. 625 districts. This is a purely factual question and you have to remember the answer to this. The answer is D. 625 districts. Identify the natural product from the list of items given below. A. Textile. B. Wheat flour. C. Cotton. D. Tomato sauce. So you have to identify the natural product. That product has not undergone any kind of manufacturing, any kind of change, but it is naturally found. So which product is in the option that is given below? Please choose the correct answer. The answer is C. Cotton. Let us see why the other three options are eliminated. Textile is already manufactured from cotton, so it falls under the secondary sector, right? Clothes belong to textile and it is in the secondary sector. Wheat flour is also already the powdered material that is found as wheat. So wheat is a natural product, but when you powder it in the factories, it becomes flour, wheat powdered white flour. So that is basically used for the ultimate manufacture of bread and biscuits. So it is not a natural product. You have tomato sauce. In tomato sauce, the natural product is tomato. But that particular tomato is pureed and made into a sauce that you eat frequently. So it has changed its natural form and become a sauce. So the answer here is cotton. Which of the following examples does not fall under unorganized sector? A. A farmer irrigating his field. B. A daily wage laborer working for a contractor. C. A doctor in a hospital treating a patient. And D. A handloom weaver working on a loom in her house. So please be cautious here. The question is asking which of these do not fall under the unorganized sector. which means majority of the options here are those that are falling in the unorganized sector. So you should pick out that one which is not under the unorganized sector. The answer is C, a doctor in a hospital treating a patient. So this doctor has been bound by the rules and regulations of the hospital, which are finally following the rules of the government, and he has fixed number of hours, right? And he has many benefits that are given by the hospital. So hence he is in the organized sector. The other three, A, B, D, are totally in the unorganized sector, where they have absolutely no kind of rules and regulations, and all these rules and regulations are formed by his superior, that is their employer. NREGA, that is National Rural Employment Guarantee Act of 2005, has guaranteed dash days of employment in a year in many districts of India. What are the number of days of employment? A, 200 days, B, 100 days, C, 30 days, D, 60 days. This is again a factual question, so please be very careful when you are answering this. The answer is B, 100 days. Where will you find the disguised unemployment the most? Select the correct option from those given below. A, among agriculture workers for farmlands, for small farmlands. B, among part-time industrial workers. C, in most of the government offices. And D, in big private companies. The answer has to be A, among agricultural workers working for small farmlands. So here is where you find disguised unemployment, that is you're employing more number of people that is actually necessary. So in the other three scenarios, there is absolutely no disguised unemployment, because there is government offices where there is correct set of employment hours. In big private companies as well, you have employment hours. As among part-time industrial workers, there is absolutely no disguised unemployment. How do big private companies contribute in the development of a nation? A, by increasing the demands for their production through advertisements. B, by increasing their profits. C, by increasing productivity of the country in the manufacturing of industrial goods. And D, by providing private hospital facilities for the rich. So, it is through increasing productivity of the country in the manufacturing of industrial goods. Through this process, big private companies contribute to the development of a country. Just building hospitals does not mean development. Just increasing profits does not mean development at all. Fill in the blanks using the correct option given in the bracket. First one. Employment in the service sector dash increased to the same extent as production. The answer is employment in the service sector has not increased to the same extent as the production, as we've seen in the graphs in the class section. Workers in the dash sector do not produce goods. You have to choose between tertiary or agriculture. The answer is workers in the tertiary sector do not produce goods, because the workers in the tertiary sector produce services. The ones that are producing goods are the agricultural sector and the secondary industrial sector. Third one. Most of the workers in the dash sector enjoy job security, that is organized or unorganized. So the answer being, most of the workers in the organized sector enjoy job security. The ones in the unorganized sector have no job security. A dash proportion of laborers in India are working in the unorganized sector. Choose between large or small. The answer, a large proportion of laborers in India are working in the unorganized sector. Cotton is a dash product and cloth is a dash product. Choose from natural or manufactured. The answer is, cotton is a natural product and cloth is a manufactured product. Right? Cotton is a natural resource, and when it goes to the factories for weaving and yarning, it becomes cloth. So that is ultimately given out to the shops. The activities in the primary, secondary and tertiary sectors are dash. That is, you have to choose among independent and interdependent. So, as we know, the activities in the primary, secondary and tertiary sectors are interdependent. The service sector, that is the third tertiary sector, is completely dependent on the agricultural and the manufactured sector. Find the odd one out and please mention why. A. The first one. Tourist guide, dhobi, tailor, potter. Let us see which one is the odd one out. The answer is potter. Why exactly is the potter the odd one out? Because in the four options that is given here, only the potter is relating to the secondary sector. The others are producing this kind of service. Tourist guide is providing, he's teaching you the kind of different things about archaeological places, right? So that's the service he's given out. Dhobi is washing clothes. So that is the kind of service he is producing. What is tailor? He is stitching clothes. Again, it's an activity that the tailor does. So potter is the only one who belongs to the secondary sector. Teacher, doctor, vegetable vendor, lawyer. The answer is vegetable and vendor, because this vegetable and vendor directly helps in the production of goods, right? Teacher, doctor and lawyer help in the direct production of services. The teacher is teaching as a service, the doctor is checking the health of a patient as service, and the lawyer is providing justice to the people, which is the service. So vegetable vendor is the only one who is selling vegetables, that is the good that is consumed by the people. Third one. Postman, cobbler, soldier, police constable. The odd one out is cobbler, because that is the only one which falls under the private sector, meaning private individual is taking up this activity, but postman is again in the part of the public sector. Soldier works for the Indian Army, hence it's a public sector. Police constable again works for the police service, that is in the government sector, that is the public sector. Next one. MTNL, Indian Railways, Air India, Sahara Airlines, and All India Radio. The answer is Sahara Airlines, because this is the only private sector company given in the 5 given options. You have MTNL, Indian Railways, Air India, and All India Radio. All are a part of the government. So it's a public sector. Match the following. So on the left column, you have the problems that are being faced by the farming sector. On the right column, you have the possible measures that are going to overcome the problems that are being faced by the farmers in the farming sector. So let us match the one as to whichever is more suitable. You have unirrigated land. So what is the kind of possible measure that you can take to remove the unirrigated land? We can construct canals by the government, because it is going to channelize the water from the river or the lake into the kind of farm where irrigation is necessary. Then you have low prices for crops. That is overcome by procurement of food grains by the government. The government can procure by the food grains from the farmer itself and give him a better price for his crops. Right? Next, you have debt burden. You have a lot of debt that has to be paid to the money lender. You don't have that money. How are you going to overcome this issue? You can make sure that banks are providing credit with low interest and there is lesser dependency on money lenders who we have to pay a higher interest, which even amounts to debt in the first place. So in order to remove that kind of debt, you can factor in the banking facilities which will give you through low interest. Then you have no job in the off season. So how can you factor that out? You can set up agro-based mills which provide you work throughout the year. Right? Next, compelled to sell their grains to the local traders soon after harvest. That is covered up through cooperative marketing societies. So you don't have to compulsorily sell it to the local traders. Instead, you can form a cooperative society among you farmers itself, pool in all the kinds of grains and the resources that you produce, and finally go out to the market and sell it. Do you think the classification of economic activities into primary, secondary, and tertiary is useful? Explain how. Yes, it is definitely very useful. Why? Why? Because it can give us information as to how and where the people are of our country are employed. And also it helps in the better calculation of GDP, and once you know the GDP of the country, you will know exactly whether your economy is progressing or regressing. And also you will be able to compare the countries, the GDP of the different countries of the world, and you will be able to ascertain the per capita income. For example, you will be able to kind of make a comparison as to why the tertiary sector is improving, why is it developing, and okay, if the tertiary sector is developing, that also means that the agriculture is depleting. So how are you going to reform this entire agricultural sector so that it becomes at par with the tertiary sector? So it helps you think about such questions. And it also helps for smooth administration and ultimately development in itself. How is the tertiary sector different from the other sectors? Illustrate with a few examples. So the tertiary sector is different from the other two sectors mainly because the other two sectors, that is primary and secondary, produce goods, but tertiary sector produces services. The activities Activities under tertiary sector helps in the development of whatever good has been produced in the other two sectors, that is primary and secondary. And these activities also support the manufacturing processes. So what are the examples of tertiary sector we have here? We have communication, we have banking, we have insurance, we have transport from one place to another, we have trade. And hence most of these activities involve service, and that's why it's also called as service sector. Workers are exploited in the unorganized sector. Do you agree with this view? Give reasons in support of your answer. Yes, I fully agree that workers are exploited in the unorganized sector. And why do I think so? Let us see. They have no fixed number of working hours. And even if they work for extra hours, they don't get paid for those extra hours. And they do not get any kind of extra allowance apart from what they earn daily. And government rules and regulations are not followed. They absolutely have no job security. They don't know when the employer will throw them out of the company. So this is what unorganized sector does. And jobs, the kind of jobs that they do are low paid, and usually the workers in this kind of companies are illiterate, ignorant and unorganized. Tertiary sector is not planning any role in the development of the Indian economy. Do you agree? Give reasons in support of your answer. I personally do not agree with this statement, and I will say so why as to I don't agree. The tertiary sector, it has contributed immensely when you see the last 20 years to the Indian economy. The IT industry has grown, and the share of the GDP in this particular sector has grown from 40% as to what it was in 1973 to 50% to what it is in 2003.